Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen Galloway, the Dean of the Chapman University Film School. I'm delighted to have two of the most creative minds in the entertainment business today with me, cinematographer Dan Laustsen and writer-director Guillermo del Toro.
Hello, Stephen.
Hello, nice to be here. Hi, Guillermo. Good to see you.
Really exceptional work. And I want to go back to the beginning and your very first.
By the way, Stephen, you may notice Dan and I are in the same diet ad. I'm the before and he's the after.
Don't worry, Guillermo. You look great, you know. Let's go back to the very beginning. You start to think of doing an adaptation of the novel that the film Nightmare Alley was based on. Period piece, stamped with your imagination. What is the very first conversation you have about actually bringing that to life, giving it a particular look, making it your own? Guillermo, what did you say to Dan? And Dan, what did you ask Guillermo?
Well, in my case, Dan and I started talking about particularly using the architecture to frame the characters and certain aspects of the light. We talked about Hammershøi, the Danish painter, and we talked about American realism, you know, Andrew Wyatt, for the shot of the cabin, him leaving the cabin, the Christina's World. Yeah. We talked about Grant Wood or Thomas Hart Benton. And we did talk about lighting it like a classic film. We basically said, quote unquote, let's do a black and white film in color. We didn't expect we would end up being able to do the two versions on the beginning, but we had that discussion. And Dan immediately said, I would love to lower the ceilings like they did in some classic films, to keep them in the lensing on the wide lens, to include the ceilings in our compositions and certain interiors. And I think that then we started going from there. Obviously, I had a Bible, a visual Bible that we had been developing, and then started bouncing ideas about single source lighting. And for example, in the club, he started discussing the idea of using the surface of the tablecloths to bounce on the actors, and so on and so forth. We really have one conversation that lasts 7 months.
Yeah.
And what did you want to know? What do you ask Guillermo when you start working on? You've done several films of his.
This is like number 4. I don't remember the name of the first one, but this is number 4. No, when, you know, every time Guillermo's coming with a project to me, you know, it's just so exciting because, you know, Guillermo's so visual, and we like the both the same way to light and to move the cameras. And so we talked about format in the beginning, you know, because I remember, Guillermo, you have this idea, you want to go 4:3, the Academy in the beginning. And then we shot a couple of tests on that, and we figured out it was like, it didn't suit the movie so well, because we were going to have a lot of close-ups, we want to move the camera a lot. So we start to thinking about what kind of lenses we should use, and we talked about we want to go more wide angle than we did normally, because, you know, we want to go more to the wide angle side of the lenses, and we want to lower the camera. And as Guillermo said, you know, we want to use the ceiling so we have the feeling about people was inside a box. And that was like a conversation we had very, very early. And I think you talked about it should be longer takes compared to Shape of Water. You want to go more into it, like a kind of ballet between the actors and the camera and the lighting, because especially in the Buffalo world, where we want to go into this, you can say, old-fashioned black and white lighting, very precise noir lighting. And that's, of course, very difficult to precise for the actors because they have to hit the light right away, you know, otherwise. For the light, it's fantastic, so it's not fantastic, it's like 5 centimeters. And of course, that's a challenge for everybody. So that was like this kind of discussions we have in the beginning.
Yeah, we started talking also, Steve, about using shadow bars to light Kate, for example, which is a very old device. We talked about doing expressionist light a little more in the carnival, you know, almost like a silent film in terms of ratio of contrast, you know. But yeah, we talked also about using wider lenses than we've used before in our collaborations. And the 185 was the perfect format because it gave enough of a landscape feel.
Yeah.
And was not so constrictive. It was particularly important then that we started designing all the sets for 185.
Huh.
So, you know,
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah,
So
because
actually,
then,
you decided how the format should, and then you looked at how the sets would fit that.
yeah,
Yeah.
for example, there were some sets that we needed to extend in length or in height, or, you know, make them to be able to contain them beautifully as a composition in the 185. You cannot plan a set in the abstract. Cinematography, set design are of a piece.
Yeah.
Number one, because many of Dan's lights are going to be hidden or buried in the set.
Yeah.
His main source, if it's a window, has to be in the right way, exist in the right way, but also simply because many production designers construct a set and then the cinematographer and the director don't shoot it. And we always shoot the set because the set is an actor and the wardrobe is an actor. I think that we agree that it's a 4-leg table: production design, wardrobe, you know, cinematography and directing is a single table. And we are all supporting the same narrative surface. Without one of the three or the four, you're lost.
And in the middle of the actors, you know, the performance, you know, you have to support the performance all the time, you know, that's, especially the way we are shooting it. You're shooting the movie, you know, it's like with the camera so a big part of storytelling, you know, that's really important. Is fitting the right scenes. And I think that's what, and especially some of the scenes in Kate Blanchett's office, you know, was so, it's really like a ballet, you know, it feels so real. And that's because the set is designed that length, so, you know, the camera can move. It's not like a small box. And we talked a lot about that, Guillermo and myself and Tamara, about how to do that.
Well, we'll talk in a minute about how you get that combination of performances and camera move, because some of those sequences just between Kate Blanchett and Bradley Cooper are really masterclasses in how to block a scene, light it, get the performance. But there's one big sort of gorilla here, which is with everything you said about preparation, halfway through the shoot, the pandemic hits and you crash. And during that time, Guillermo says to you, Dan, I think I want to shoot this in black and white instead of color. But how did he convey that to you? And what was your reaction?
It was not instead. It was maybe we'll do one version. Not instead, it would have been Heart Attack Country.
Yeah, Searchlight would not have been happy.
No, but again, you know, I have, you know, we have been working together on 4 movies, and we know each other, and I have 100% respect for Guillermo. So, you know, when he's saying something, I know we have been thinking about it. So for me, it was like, you know, yeah, why not? You know, of course. But from the beginning, we was talking about the lighting should be like this old-fashioned lighting. So, you know, we was lighting the sets, the actors, so we could do that. You know, we didn't knew we were going to do it in the beginning, but we just have the technology. You know, the key light has to be like single source key light. The key light has to be overexposed, you know, but still be able to pull it down. And the black has to be pitch black. And for that reason, we were shooting with a diffusion filter inside the camera to break up the highlights and to give the skin tones a little bit more glow. And that helps a lot for the black and white version. But that looks fantastic in the color version as well. It was something we thought about, but it was not, we didn't know we were going to do it, but it was just a way to light the color version in a more classic black and white lighting.
He didn't call you in the car and you had to pull over and take a heavy drink or something.
I'm never getting a heart attack when Guillermo is just
No, but what did happen, Stephen, that was very useful for me is after the pandemic pause, which was 6 months, and I did show the movie, what we had in black and white, to Kim, and I started viewing the dailies.
And Kim being the screenwriter who
My wife and co-screenwriter, yeah. And I started viewing the dailies in black and white. And I started to see what was working, what was not. And most of it, I would say 90%, remained exactly to the plan. The only thing that Dan and I found as a new resource when we went to the carnival was to make the night sky to light the atmosphere a little, to light the haze a little, which worked in color and worked in black and white to make the carnival a little more magical. But most of the things just lended themselves to it.
Where were you and how did you react when you heard the pandemic has arrived and we're going to have to shut down? How was that decision made?
Well, we didn't hear. I think when we heard that we were in Toronto, so we heard the NHL was suspending some of the games, and we were shooting in the garden, the final scenes between Grindel and Stan with Molly playing the dead girl.
Yeah.
And we thought, well, if that is the case, if sports are starting to react, then this is serious, you know? And the next day, we decided very clearly to go to the studio. And in the middle of lunch, we called the studio and said, we're pulling the plug.
Wow.
It was a decision by the three producers and Dan and myself.
Really?
We're pulling the plug. We don't want to risk our crew. We think this is more serious. It's not something that is going to go away. And fortunately, because of that decision, there were no casualties or anything serious to do with COVID.
What did the studio, when you said, okay, we're going to have to pull the plug, I'm assuming you thought this was going to be a matter of days, not months.
Yeah, well, the problem is, I thought it was going to be 6 to 9 weeks.
No, in the beginning we thought it was 2 weeks, didn't we? It's like, we're going to shut down for 2 weeks, and then like, oh.
Yeah, and I stayed in Toronto until the borders closed.
Wow.
And I found myself with a lot of time in my hands, enough to start watching the movie in black and white.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what did you do with that time on your hands?
We edited the movie. What we had an hour and plus. So we edited what we had and started refining that material. And then I showed it to Bradley and to Dan and to the studio. And I said, this is what we have. And that helped us, particularly in planning the first half, which was the carnival. Because unfortunately for us, the part that we had yet to shoot was the one with the most extras.
Yeah, exactly.
And we had cut everything in the small groups, and then we needed to do the carnival with extras.
Did anything change because of that 6 months? Anything creative?
Creatively, for the story, yes. Visually, I think we stayed the same. Dan and I.
Yeah, we stayed very much the same visually.
Very much the same. We visited the carnival and we knew what it was going to look like. I think that didn't change. What changed was we wrote new scenes for Toni Collette or Pete or David Strathern, you know, and we knew that we needed more tenderness with Molly on the carnival than originally thought. We were able to map Stan a little more closely.
Was there an issue with getting the actors back together when you shot so many months later, 6 months later?
It wasn't. It was very complicated to match all the travel and all the agendas of the different projects but the only good news is we were one of the first projects to reopen.
Yeah.
So we were not competing that fiercely for their time. So we were able to have them. What changes is everything else. I mean, the way you handle extras, crew, the way you communicate with the actors with a mask and a face shield and gloves. It's a very different exercise, but I think by the first week, we were not noticing it that much anymore.
No, we went really good to that, and the studio was supporting us very much to all the health and safety, and Bradley was very, very pushing very hard to be, everybody should be safe. That was fantastic. So nobody gets sick on that on our show, it was really, really good.
Bradley was a producer as well as a star. How did that come about, and what did he contribute as a producer?
What I think was important was when you have the mapping of the character and the mapping of the sort of game plan to come back, when you have all that superimposed on top of each other, and you have to sort of lead with the decision of stopping the movie, coming back, how do we come back? Everybody else, if number one in the call sheet comes in, everybody else follows, and then key decision making, recommended a color correcting facility and a virtuoso color correcting maestro, and I think Stefan Sonnenfeld, and I think they had worked together before. I think that the way he approached all the decision making from schedule, from logistics, made it all much easier. He is a guy that has known or not known, produced many movies so far, and I think it's very useful to tackle a pandemic when your actor is also a producer. You understand those decisions easier.
These actors are great actors, but they're also movie stars. Dan, how do you light movie stars?
Very little, very little.
Very little, but very little, but very precise. And especially, as we talked about in the beginning, because the Buffalo sequence, when they're coming to Buffalo, we have to change the lighting. They have to be more like a Hollywood old-fashioned lighting. And of course, that is very difficult and a big challenge, but very, very good. And I think it's giving the actors a very powerful image. And because the actors have to be very, very precise together with the camera and the lighting, it's just a challenge for everybody. And everybody thinks it's super fun, especially because Guillermo is pushing the ship that direction. You have to be where the light is, because otherwise it's not working. But actors is like, you have to support them with the lighting. You have to be careful. They're coming in on the set, and they have to be in the character. They have to be whatever they're doing, and then we have to support that part of the movie making. And I think you have to have respect for the actors, and you have to light them so it works well for the scene.
But one of the decisions we made, Stephen, was to actually many times to keep Stan, the character Bradley was playing, in the dark.
Yeah,
a complete.
That's so interesting.
No light at all, because that lended itself to the style of the movies we were trying to quote, and not only that, but many scenes. One of the things that evolved from that is, let's shoot him from behind.
Yeah.
Not even cut around to see him. Did you know he's lying?
Dan, did you discuss that with him and say, are you okay with this? Or
no, I'm discussing that with Guillermo. It's just like, Guillermo is like, he's the director, he's the master of the show, and it's not discussion, it's just something we are talking about all the time. How do you want to do that? And Guillermo said, what are we doing? Why are you not doing this? And it's just, we are doing everything together. It's not like I'm lighting the scene. It's so close relationships, and that's the beauty of that. And of course, Bradley have 100%, all the actors have 100% respect for Guillermo's decision. So you just will figure out how we should do it. And I think moving behind and pushing behind Bradley, in the silhouette, and coming into for example, that scene where he's sitting with a fireplace in the hotel room, and he's standing up, and we are coming into him on a wide angle, pushing forward, and he's in 100% silhouette. That is one of my favorite shots, because it's so powerful, and that scenes tell really how he is or how he feels, and it's 100% silhouette.
And I remember Bradley Bradley started to joke, and that's the advantage of having an actor that is producer, but he's also a director. He understood exactly how powerful this was going to be.
Yeah.
And asking for a close-up well lit, or can you turn the camera around? No, he understands everything narratively. He is a director. And he would joke with Laustsen. We would look at the monitor, and there was a little light on the edge of his face and said, Laustsen, why are you putting light on me? It has to be completely dark. I'm the star. Taking it in good spirit. But it is not, if you have an actor that is a star, that has a lesser understanding, that may be a conflict. But with Bradley, you're working with the best possible partner, you know.
You know, when we last spoke about this, Guillermo, you said something that really struck me, that with Bradley Cooper, it's his eyes.
Yes.
Not the voice, it's not the mouth. Different acts have different things. There's something about his eyes that is riveting. With Cate Blanchett, she's a theatrically trained actress. She has certain moves, she has a bone structure. Dan, do you go about liking them differently like that?
Yeah, for sure, you know, because I think when, you know, she has to be the femme fatale, you know, she has to be like fantastic good looking. Of course, Bradley has to look very good as well. But on the other way, he has to be much more powerful. She has to be powerful on the femme fatale way. So, you know, we did much more direct lighting on her, you know, and we have these shadows in the front head and stuff. We didn't do that so much on Bradley, but of course, you have to light them different because they're two different characters and they're two different people, you know, but it's the same. You cannot do it so different so it's not blending into the same scene. I think that's super important to remember, you know, you still have to cut it together. And that discussion was so great to have working with Guillermo because he can see that right away, you know, he's seeing stuff before I see them sometimes.
But we have a system that is really nice and very permissive. The great advantage of digital is Dan has 30 lights that look like no light to create an effect. And some of them have to be on camera. I mean, they have to be on the frame because the actors are moving so much. And we have the understanding that those lights can be raised.
Right. Digitally. Yes.
So the actors can transit from one light to the other. You can light a little harsher on Bradley, 2 feet away from her, and then you're going to dim the light as he moves, and that light is going to now light her softly. But maybe a tripod is on the light, on the set, on the frame, and we know that we're going to eliminate it, and there is that understanding.
Yeah, of course, that's a huge help to do that, of course. And especially because the camera is moving so much around, so, you know, you have to be able to, sometimes you cannot avoid to see a light and we just paint it out.
And how precise, when you said everything is very precise, you know, famously when Gordon Willis lit The Godfather, you know, an actor could move an inch or so and then be out of light. How much latitude, Dan, do you give them like that?
No, you know, it's not so much about latitude. It's just, you know, I think, again, you know, it's ends, you know, when Kate is standing there and the shadows is on her forehead. If she's taking one step forward, you know, that shadow is gone. And if she's taking one step back again, it's gone again, you know, then it's too far down. So, you know, I think it's like centimeters, you know, it's very, very sensitive. And when it works, and as it did in this show, you know, it's worked really, really fantastic. And of course, Kate saw that right away and have that feeling. So, but it has to be very precise because the shadow is going to disappear if you're not on the right place.
And most of our actors, most of them are not only the Magnificent Seven, and they are the best gang of actors we could ever gather for a project, but they're also, most of them, incredibly precise.
Super precise.
Like Bradley is almost like an English actor. He has complete memory of matching. He lands exactly on the mark, so does Kate. So you can permit yourself those light games, so to speak, the stylistically very difficult to sustain if the actor is not precise. I mean, if the actor is not precise, an over shoulder doesn't work, let alone something as complex as this.
Yeah.
Do you like to rehearse with them?
I do, but it depends on the project. Like, for example, in this movie, we have table work, but most of the actors arrived days before we started shooting. So we could discuss the character on the biographies that I wrote and this and that, but rehearsal was on the day.
Wow.
You know, we arrived in the morning. I would say, this is what I'm thinking. Dan would be there, and then we would do any adjustments that we needed, watch the rehearsals, and sometimes Dan and I would change the plan right there, or find something new, something different on the day. But rehearsal in this movie was on the day. Normally, I like 6 weeks of rehearsal.
You do?
I do. I love it. But in this movie, we didn't have that because you could not have all the actors at the same time in Toronto.
And it's amazing because I said to you, I thought it was some of their best acting ever. And some of those scenes where, you know, Cate Blanchett and Bradley are in the same room, the blocking, the lighting, the acting were all so exquisite that I would have spent weeks on just that alone.
No, what is fantastic is to have precise actors, because then you can do precision filmmaking. And I can tell you, Kate has a line where she says, "You're an Okie with straight teeth," and her lip trembled exactly in the same syllable in every take.
Deliberately?
In every take. I don't know if it's deliberate, but it's precise. And Bradley, you can tell him, he knows when the edge of a cigarette is on camera or not on camera. He knows exactly the lens you're using, and you can tell him, move it to the right, and without even looking, he does it. Yeah. It's very good to work with actors that precise. It's a blessing, and it's rare that you have two actors of that caliber with that precision and that truth all at the same time in the same scene.
The performance is fantastic, you know, that's one thing, but then all the technical stuff is coming on top of that. You know, that's just, they're blowing you away, I think. But that's, of course, back to you, Guillermo. It's like
that is the thing, Steven, when we're working and you define it very coarsely. You say, if it's an English actor, classically trained, they have perfect continuity. And oftentimes get that from other actors. And this is the best case, both worlds. You get the spontaneity and reality of the American school, and you get the precision of the British school in a way.
Yeah. Just 2 or 3 more questions before we wrap up. You know, every artist, you're both artists, when you go into something, it doesn't matter how many Oscars you have, it's always a bit scary. What were you most scared of going into this project for both of you?
I was not scared and very scared at the same time. I thought foolishly that technically it was not going to be a complicated movie to shoot. It was technically incredibly complicated. But I was very afraid of a change of tools for me. I was trying to move the camera and shoot in a different way. I was, rather than instigating the truth through whimsical details, I was seeking the truth on a world that needed to feel researched and real and not whimsical, but beautiful. And I was looking for a seductive image to go with a very, very dark tale, but that was equally loaded with dread. So there were very difficult things for me tonally. Tone is one of the jobs of the director, and it's the hardest one to explain, but you need to keep everything on the same tone. And I was very scared of that, very, very scared of that.
How do you define that tone? In other words,
you navigate with a trained eye and the gut. You know when something, like for example, some of our favorite shots that Dan and I staged together are out of the movie because they felt to me too much like a shot. They felt too elaborate, too. Look, Dan is.
I'm crying. I'm crying. I'm crying.
He's unhappy even today. But that is one way where you preserve tone. You say this feels like a movie, or this is too genre, or this is too this or to that. There are a couple of scenes that I adore that went out.
Really?
Tonally, they were wrong. And you may not see it on the day, but then the dailies, or you see it definitely in the editing room.
And Dan, what about you? What scared you going into this project?
I don't think I was scared because I'm always thrilled to work together with Guillermo. For me, it's like, it's like, it is really a challenge, and it's really, I enjoy it. So I was not scared. I was concerned about how we should do this stuff in Lily's office, because I knew we want to go wide angle. I knew we want to move the camera a lot. And I knew we was talking about this like artificial old-fashioned Hollywood lighting. And, that was so precise. So I was not sure how to do that. And that was like a big challenge for me. And of course the carnival, because the carnival was so big, it was huge setups. And, we was very concerned about the weather there. So I don't think I was nervous, but I was super concerned about how to do that lighting in Lily's office. But it went really well.
When you are in a situation where you're concerned and you're not sure, how do you get to the point of being confident? Do you do lots of research? Do you talk to other cinematographers? How do you?
I talk to Guillermo. That is like my best pearl there. It's just like, we're doing a movie together, and it's just which way are we going?
We're unlikely twins.
Yeah.
But to your point,
and Danny DeVito.
yes, but there's a huge amount of work that happens in pre-production. For example, I'll give you one example. Is the decision in Lily's office to have the snow outside and make it slightly artificial, just by half a measure. That allows enormously to bring all those lights and shadows that are more of a construction and that have not been truth in the carnival. The carnival is a little more rooted and sorted and earthly, and that helps the light. But to give you an example, when we laid out the carnival, we had to lay a football field worth of set. And we had to excavate in the ground and put a system of electricity, steam, and water to keep the mud wet, to throw out steam in the atmosphere, and then had to plan specifically the positioning of giant cranes with lights so that when we changed the angle, he could raise a crane or two as you would raise a tripod, a C-stand, very quickly. And that necessitates a huge planning. And Dan is like a general at that. He says, here, here, here. And that way we move. It's 5 minutes between one setup and the other on a thing that you can see for a mile. It's a mile of set and background.
Yeah. And, we have a fantastic crew in Toronto. Those guys was helping, all the technical people was fantastic. But, coming back, when you have a very close relationship with the director, it's just their best buddy to talk about what should the movie looks like, and it's like, you cannot make a fantastic movie as a cinematographer, a nice, good looking movie without a director that's supporting you. It's not possible.
Yeah.
Because, it's just the way it is. And I think that's the beauty of movie making, is like you are doing it together with people you really admire and like to work together with. And that is fantastic, I think. And that was the whole crew. The crew was a lot of the people we worked together with before, and some was new, but it was a fantastic crew in Toronto. They really support the movie and us. So that was a huge help.
Last question, each work of art is this sort of voyage of discovery. One of the reasons you're doing it is partly to discover what you really think, about life. How did you emerge different from this project? Did you see anything about yourselves or your views of the world differently when you came out of it?
I think for me is a movie that it would have been impossible to shoot any time before the age I'm in. I'm 57 and I needed 30 years of filmmaking to make this movie. I really just feel that the solution finding, the problem tackling, the complexity of the movie is a movie that is very much the movie of a man in more mature years. When you basically, as you direct, you collect tools. You have a toolbox and you start filling it. This movie needed for me to open that toolbox and use every wrench and every plier and every screwdriver in that toolbox. And I think what we feel, Dan and I, is that now we think on our feet, that's my feeling, in a faster way than before. We saw things in a more precise way, and the marksmanship of hitting the bullseye on what is needed, it comes faster and more natural. Yeah, you get in your way a lot less. Let me put it that way.
I want to pursue that a tiny bit more, Guillermo, because that's not quite the question. So you went in, you play with all the tools, and then you put them out. Did you see yourself or the world differently at the end of the experience?
Completely, absolutely. I think that it doesn't matter if I shoot another movie with monsters or no monsters. The filmmaking is different from now on. I have a clear sense in the deepest DNA of my being that I can never shoot a movie the same way I shot before Nightmare Alley. There is a gravity and a sense of narrative that is different from now on, and that's changed. I'm not the same. You know, as a painter or a sculptor or a musician, you have certain phases. This, for me, however long it lasts, is the start of a phase that promises for me to be really interesting to explore.
I'm so excited, but I love every phase of your work, but I'm dying to know what the next one is. And Dan, I'm going to ask you the same question.
You know, a lot of people talk about, oh, I did that and that movie for like 15 years ago, and that's a movie I'm most proud of, you know, and, you know, but for me, it's like, I'm a little bit older than Guillermo, so, you know, I'm thinking, the last movie I did was Nightmare Alley, and I'm so proud of that. For me, it's like, you know, it could be the last movie. I'm like super proud. I hope it's not going to be the last movie, but I'm just, I'm super proud about that movie.
It's left you satisfied and content.
I'm so satisfied. You know, a lot of times I think, oh, I could do that better and that, but you know, I'm think we did a fantastic movie, and I'm super happy about the look. I'm very proud.
And I really hope people.
Can I say something more?
Yeah, of course.
The other thing that also this movie doesn't change it without the pandemic. I think the pandemic came, and I really must tell you, it's very moving to come back to work and realize how lucky and blessed we all are. Bradley felt that, Dan felt that, Miles, all the cast, we all felt it at a molecular level. How blissful we can be in a movie set, how fortunate we are to have this narrative joy and responsibility, and nothing became casual, no meal was guaranteed, so to speak, and we had a holy hunger with this movie that I bless, and I haven't had in the same way before. The pandemic told you this is what life is about. Go to life.
Well, it's beautiful work. Dan, the cinematography is extraordinary, and I'm so glad I saw both versions, and I hope whoever's watching this does, because the black and white is just haunting, and it stays with you and enters your imagination, and really it was overwhelming. So, you know, Dan Laustsen, Guillermo del Toro, thank you so much. And
thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.